Alex Johnson woke up to the soft light of early morning spilling through his bedroom window. He stretched his arms above his head and felt a small sense of excitement. Today, he would pick up a special package that had arrived for him. It was something he had waited for all week. He drank a glass of water and looked out at the quiet street. The houses were neat and painted in soft colors. Birds chirped in the trees, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves. Alex smiled, ready for a simple chore that would brighten his day. He slipped into a light jacket and laced up his walking shoes. The air was cool, but not cold. He locked his front door behind him and started down the sidewalk. The community felt peaceful. Flower beds lined the way, and neatly trimmed hedges showed the care of the neighbors. Alex waved to Mrs. Rivera, who was tending her rose bush, and she waved back with a warm smile. He enjoyed these small greetings. They made the neighborhood feel friendly and safe. He hummed a tune under his breath as he walked, looking forward to seeing the package. The clubhouse stood at the corner of Elm Street and Pine Avenue. Its white columns and blue roof gave it a classic look. Small sign hung by the door, Community Clubhouse and Parcel Pickup. Alex reached the steps and paused for a moment. He took a deep breath. He felt calm and happy that his package was waiting. He climbed the steps and pushed open the glass door. Inside, the room was bright and clean. A long desk ran along one, while behind it a woman typed on a computer keyboard. Other chairs sat empty against the walls. Alex approached the desk with his wallet in hand, placed his package slip on the counter and smiled politely. "Good morning," he said. "I'm here to pick up my package." The woman behind the desk nodded and looked at her screen. She checked his name on the list. "Please show me your ID," she said in a friendly tone. Alex reached into his wallet and pulled out his driver's license. He held it out so she could see his photo. Everything seemed normal. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the calm. "What do you think you are doing here?" asked a tall woman standing nearby. She wore a bright red blouse and had her arms crossed. Her hair was pulled back tightly, and her eyes looked hard. Alex looked up in surprise. Did not know her. The woman stepped forward. She was one of the HOA board members, Karen Thompson. He had seen her at meetings but never spoken to her directly. Her expression made him uneasy. Before Alex could answer, Karen reached out and snatched his ID from the counter. Alex tried to pull back, but she held it firmly. "You don't belong here," she said. Her voice was cold and sharp, glared at him as though he had broken some unspoken rule. Alex felt a rush of panic. He opened his mouth to protest, but no words came. Out. Karen's grip on his ID was firm. She did not seem willing to give it back. Without warning, Karen turned on her heel and stormed toward the door. Alex called after her, "Please, give it back." But she did not slow down. She pushed the door open and stepped out into the fresh air. The door swung shut behind her with a soft click. Alex rushed forward but found himself stuck inside. Pounded lightly on the glass, hoping she would notice. Inside, the woman at the desk looked uncomfortable. She shifted her feet but did not move to stop Karen. Alex hurried outside and saw Karen standing by the curb. She held his ID between her fingers like a prize. The sun glinted off the plastic as she examined it. Alex reached out again. "Karen, that's mine," he said in a shaky voice. "Please give it back." She did not reply. Instead, she bent down and pulled open the grate covering a storm drain. The metal grate was old, but sturdy. Alex's heart pounded. He could not believe what was happening. Karen lifted her arm high, holding the license out of Alex's reach. Tears formed in his eyes. He felt helpless and small. Then she dropped the ID. It slipped from her fingers and fell into the dark hole. Alex gasped. He ran forward, but it was too late. The ID hit the water deep below with a soft splash. He stood at the edge of the drain, staring down into the darkness. The asphalt around him felt hot under the morning sun, but he felt a chill. Instead, Alex knelt and peered into the sewer grate. He leaned forward slowly, trying to see the small card. The drain was narrow, and only a little light reached inside. He could see the wet walls of the pipe, and water trickled down the side. The license lay out of sight, lost somewhere in that shallow stream. Alex's hand shook as he leaned back. He felt a knot in his stomach. Without his ID, he could not prove who he was or get his package. He stood up and looked around. Other neighbors walked by, but they did not stop. A jogger nodded politely, but no one asked if he was okay. Alex felt invisible and alone. Called out once more, but only the birds answered. He rubbed his forehead and thought of what to do next. His mind raced with questions. How could someone throw away his ID? What would he tell the police? How would he pick up his package? Alex took a deep breath, felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them away. He knew he had to stay calm. He crouched again by the grate and pressed his ear close. He listened to the water as it flowed. It made a gentle gurgling sound. He wished he could reach in and fish out the ID, but he did not have any tool. He had only his bare hands and his worry. Straightening up, Alex stepped back. He wiped his palms on his jacket and tried to think clearly. He realized he needed help, but he did not know who to ask. The clubhouse was closed now because Karen had gone. Inside, the clerk was still at her desk, but she did not move. Alex turned away and let out a soft sigh. He felt a knot in his chest. Losing his ID felt like losing a piece of himself. He looked down the street toward his house. It was just a short walk away. He could go back and decide what to do next. But he could not go back home without an ID. He would feel trapped. Alex stared at the grate for a moment longer. Then he felt something shift inside him. He would not give up. He would find his ID or find a way to get a new one. He pressed his lips together and squared his shoulders. Alex walked slowly away from the drain, each step feeling heavy. He glanced back once more. The grate looked the same as ever. But in his mind, it held his lost card. He reminded himself that this was only one moment in his day. He still had hope that he could fix this. As he turned the corner toward his home, he felt a small spark of determination. He would not let one act of cruelty define his morning. Would find a solution and move forward, even if it took all his courage. Alex's heart raced as he stood at the edge of the storm drain, staring into its dark opening. I felt the cool morning air on his face, but inside he burned with worry. His driver's license lay somewhere down in that narrow channel of water, lost and out of reach. He bent down again, leaning closer to the grate, trying to see any hint of the little plastic card. He spotted nothing but wet stone and shallow water swirling around the bend. His palms pressed against his knees for support as he whispered to himself, "I have to get it back." He looked up and called Karen, "Please help me." His voice echoed against the clubhouse walls. He waited, hoping she would hear him and show a flicker of kindness. A moment passed. No answer. He pushed himself to his feet and walked around to the front door of the clubhouse. He knocked hard. Inside, the clerk peeked out, eyes wide. Raised his voice just enough, careful not to shout. "That woman threw my ID away. I need it back." The clerk shook her head and stepped back. The door closed in his face with a firm click. Frustration knotted inside Alex's chest. He took a deep breath and pulled out his phone. The HOA office number was saved under community help. He tapped it and held the phone to his ear. The line rang twice before someone answered in a polite but bored tone. "Homeowners Association office? How can I help you?" Alex explained what had happened, trying to keep his voice calm. He described Karen's actions and how his license was in the drain. He asked if they could send someone to retrieve it. The receptionist sighed and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but that is not our responsibility. You'll have to handle it yourself." Felt a wave of helplessness wash over him, looked at the grate again, then at the clubhouse door, then back at the grate. Without his ID, he could not prove who he was. Felt exposed, lost. His mind raced with ideas. He needed a tool of some kind. He scanned the sidewalk, glancing at the neat flower beds and trimmed hedges. Maybe someone had left a long stick or a metal rod in the yard. He walked to the edge of the clubhouse grounds, eyes searching every corner. His own driveway was just a short distance away. He made his way home, each step heavy with worry. When he reached his front porch, he paused. Small wooden box sat by the wall, filled with gardening tools. He unlocked the box, lifted the lid, and peered inside. Shovels, rakes, and a few long poles lay neatly in a row. His fingers closed around a thin metal rod almost 2 meters long. It looked straight and sturdy enough to fish something out of a drain. He grabbed it and hurried back toward the clubhouse with hope renewing his pace. Back at the storm drain, Alex knelt and threaded the rod under the grate bars. He pressed his face close and peeked through the narrow gap. The water glinted faintly as it flowed around an unseen corner. He knew the license was there. Carefully, he worked the rod forward, feeling for the smooth edge of the plastic card. His fingers gripped the rod's handle, and he tried to hook the card. The rod scraped against the drain walls, but found nothing solid. He pulled it back and tried again from a slightly different angle. Patience felt thin, but he reminded himself that he must keep trying. A few minutes passed, and his arms began to ache. He leaned back, rubbed his shoulders, and closed his eyes. He thought about what else he might use. He needed something sticky to grab the card's surface. Remembered the duct tape in his garage. He could wrap a bit around the rod's end. That just might do it. He stood, brushed dust from his knees, and walked back home once more. Each step felt like a mile at home. Alex found the roll of tape and carefully wrapped a strip of its sticky side out on the rod's tip. He pressed it down firmly, smoothing the edges with his thumb. Then he carried the rod back to the drain. He knelt again, lowered the taped end into the water, and pressed it against the rough stone wall where he thought the license lay. He held the rod steady and slowly lifted it. At first, there was only a small wet leaf stuck to the tape. Alex sighed, then adjusted the rod's angle. He pressed again and gently lifted. His heart jumped as he saw something pale stick to the tape. He brought the rod higher and squinted. It was the edge of his license. He reached out and held the rod with both hands, careful not to let it slip. The license clung to the tape, wet but intact. Alex's relief rushed through him like warm sunlight. He brought the license out of the grate and held it close. He could see his photo, his name, and his address. It was scratched and damp, but it was there. Just as he allowed himself a small smile, he heard the soft click of shoes on pavement behind him. Froze, heart thundering. Someone was coming. Alex held his damp license close as the sound of sirens grew louder down the street. Red and blue lights danced against the walls of the clubhouse and the pavement. His heart pounded in his chest. He felt a sharp mix of relief and dread. Relief, because help had arrived. Dread, because he did not know how officers would react. He took a steadying breath and turned toward the road. He could see 2 police cars pull up, their engines idling now. Officers stepped out in dark uniforms, badges. Gleaming in the morning sun, one officer approached Alex. He was tall and wore a radio on his shoulder. The other officer moved to stand near the clubhouse steps. Alex wiped his hands on his jacket, careful not to smear any tape residue from the rod. He lifted his chin and held his license out. "Good morning, officers," he said, his voice even but soft. "I need to explain what happened here." The first officer nodded and checked his notebook. He folded it open and tapped a pen. Alex pointed to the spot by the drain. "This board member, Karen Thompson, took my ID from inside the clubhouse. She walked outside and threw it down that storm drain." He motioned to the grate, then to the rod still leaning against the curb. "I used duct tape on the rod to fish it out just minutes ago." He held the license higher so the officer could see it clearly. The officer glanced at the ID, then back at the grate, his brow furrowed. "Do you know where she is now?" the officer asked. His tone was calm but firm. Alex swallowed. He had not seen Karen since she dropped the ID. He looked around. Neighbors paused on their porches, watching silently. "I'm not sure," Alex admitted. "I think she went back inside the clubhouse." We pointed toward the door. The officer nodded and called quietly to his partner. The second officer walked up the steps and peered through the glass door. He called back, "Nobody here but the clerk. She says she saw everything." He returned and joined his partner at Alex's side. They looked at the scene, the grate, the metal rod, the faint tape residue on the pavement. Then they spoke into their radios, giving a brief update. Just then, Karen emerged from the clubhouse. She stood tall, arms folded. Her cheeks were flushed. She gave Alex a cold look and marched toward the officers. "I'm the one who called you," she announced, her voice sharp. "This man was trespassing on HOA property. He threatened me." She pointed at Alex. He felt a stab of frustration, but kept his voice calm. The officer who first spoke to Alex turned to Karen. "Ma'am, can you tell us what happened?" he asked with polite firmness. Karen squared her shoulders. "Came in without permission. He was messing with things. I asked him to leave and he refused." She paused, glancing at the drain. "That ID was in the clubhouse. I tossed it, because I did not trust him to have it." Alex took a gentle step forward. "Officer, I showed my slip at the desk. I followed every rule. She grabbed my ID without warning and threw it away. I only reached in to save it. I used my own tools. I did not threaten anyone." He opened his hand to show them his dry palms. "And the license now clean." The officer looked from Alex to Karen, then back around at the neighbors who had paused to watch. He asked, "Do we have any other witnesses here?" A neighbor 2 houses down, Mr. Patel, stepped forward. He had been walking his dog and stopped when he heard shouts. Spoke up officer. "I saw her grab his ID. She stormed out and dropped it down the drain." He was not being loud or rude. Another neighbor, Mrs. Rivera, came out and nodded. She said, "I heard her accuse him before. He never raised his voice. I was trimming my roses and saw the whole thing." Both neighbors gave their names and addresses. The officers noted their statements. Karen's face grew pale as she realized people would back up Alex's account. She looked down, then back up at the officers. The first officer closed his notebook and folded it away. He spoke to Karen in a low tone. "Ma'am, intentionally throwing someone's personal property into a drain could be seen as misconduct. There is no sign of forced entry or violent threat. It appears he was only fishing for his ID." The second officer turned to Alex. "Sir, thank you for staying calm and for cooperating. We won't file any trespassing or harassment charges against you, but you will need to report a lost or damaged ID since it was submerged." He handed Alex his license. "Keep this safe. It might still work, but you should get a replacement soon." Alex breathed out a slow sigh of relief. He nodded to the officers. "Thank you. I will do that right away." Then he looked at Karen. She looked embarrassed, her voice quiet as she spoke. I apologize. I did not handle this well." Alex met her gaze. He felt his anger soften. She saw the damage she had done, and that was enough for now. The officer gathered his partner's attention. They spoke softly, then one officer turned back to the group. "We're going to close this report as an unfounded trespassing claim, and note a formal complaint about property damage by the board member. You can follow up with the HOA or the county office if you want to press charges." He handed Alex a card with a file number. "If you need anything, call this number." The officers returned to their cars and drove off together, sirens silent. Now, lights still flashing slowly before dipping to patrol mode. Alex watched them go, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. He had stood his ground and regained his ID without harm. Neighbors approached and patted his shoulder, offering kind words. Karen slipped quietly back toward the clubhouse, head bowed. Alex unfolded the small piece of paper with the file number and tucked it into his jacket pocket. He glanced at his license one more time before placing it in his wallet. He felt the weight of morning's events behind him and the promise of a calmer afternoon ahead. Though shaken, he knew he had done the right thing, and that sense of rightness helped him stand tall as he prepared for whatever came next. Alex woke before sunrise the next day. He felt a tight knot in his chest as he remembered the events by the clubhouse. The sky was still dark, and only a few streetlights glowed along the empty road. He dressed quickly in a plain shirt and jeans, wanting to look neat for what lay ahead. As he stepped outside, the air felt cool against his skin. He paused on his front porch and took a deep breath. Today he would not wait for things to settle on their own. He would take action, gather proof, and make sure the community heard his side of the story. Back inside, Alex switched on his laptop and opened the folder where he had saved the video clips from his phone. He had filmed the moment Karen snatched his license, and the exact second she let it fall into the drain. He watched it again. Her red blouse, her sharp voice, the stunned look on his face all were captured in clear detail. He noted the file names: ID grab, license drop, rod rescue. Each clip was time-stamped with the exact minute. He named a new file, HOA, Incident Evidence. He felt a surge of confidence. With this video, he could prove the truth. Next, Alex opened a blank document and began to type. He wrote a simple summary of what happened: the date, the time, the location, and the names of the two neighbors who had seen everything. He typed Mr. Patel's statement in his own words: how Mr. Patel had been walking his dog and heard Karen shout at him, then saw her drop his license. Then he added Mrs. Rivera's words: how she had been trimming roses and had watched from her porch. He included the police report number and the name of the officer who took his statement. The document grew page by page. Saved it as HOA. Complaint statement. Alex knew he would need to present all this at the next HOA board meeting. He checked the calendar. The meeting was scheduled in 3 days at the community clubhouse. It left him little time to prepare. He opened his email and found the address of the HOA board chair. Mr. Edwards. He wrote a respectful note. He asked that his complaint be added to the meeting agenda, that the video and written statements be shared with all board members beforehand, and that the meeting be open to all residents who wish to attend. He attached the video file and the document. With a final read-through, he clicked send. Wow. The email left his outbox. Alex logged into the neighborhood messaging group on his phone. This was where neighbors discussed all sorts of issues, from lost cats to gardening tips. He drafted a short post. He explained that an incident had taken place by the clubhouse, that he would be presenting evidence at the HOA meeting, and that anyone who had seen something or wanted to support respectful behavior should join him. There, he added a link to a secure folder with the video. He wrote in simple, calm language. Then he hit post. Within minutes, neighbors began to respond. Samantha from 2 streets over wrote, "Thank you for speaking up, Alex. I saw it too." Others added thumbs-up emojis and messages like, "We need better manners in our community." A few asked for more details, and Alex answered each politely. A couple of messages came from Karen's friends, defending her. They accused him of overreacting. Alex read them with a steady heart. He did not reply to the harshest comments. Instead, he posted one more message. "Let's all stay calm and hear all sides. The meeting is open to everyone." The next morning, Alex printed the video stills and the written statements. He arranged them in a slim binder labeled Incident Evidence. He also printed extra copies for other residents to view. He set out a small USB drive with the full video file in case the board wanted to save it. Then he rehearsed what he would say, standing in his living room and speaking to an empty chair. He practiced keeping his voice calm and his words clear. He reminded himself that he was fighting for fairness, not revenge. On the day of the meeting, Alex arrived at the clubhouse early. The sun was bright and the park-like lawn looked peaceful. Few neighbors were already there, greeting each other. Saw Mr. Patel and Mrs. Rivera near the entrance. They smiled and patted his shoulder. "Good luck," Mrs. Rivera said softly. He nodded and thanked her. He carried his binder inside and took a seat in the front row. A sign by the door read, "HOA Board Meeting, Community Clubhouse." Soon, the board chair, Mr. Edwards, called the meeting to order. The air was friendly, but serious. The board members sat at a long table facing the audience. There were 5 board members, including Karen. Her face was calm, but her eyes shifted when she saw Alex's binder on the table. Mr. Edwards ran through the standard items: finances, community events, landscaping. Then he paused and said, "We have a new item requested by Mr. Johnson. He is asked to address an incident from last week." He turned to Alex and nodded. "The floor is yours." Alex stood and lifted his binder. His heart beat faster, but he spoke clearly. "Thank you, Mr. Edwards, and thank you, board members. Last week, one of our board members, Ms. Karen Thompson, took my driver's license without reason and dropped it down the storm drain outside this building." He paused to let the words sink in. Then he clicked a button on his laptop and projected a still image on the television screen, Karen's hand holding the license. Gasps came from the audience. He clicked again to show the moment the license fell into the grate. The room fell silent. He advanced to a slide with Mr. Patel's statement. He read the words aloud, and he did the same with Mrs. Rivera's. He held up the binder. I also have these written statements here, and I have the full video on this. USB drive. I have a copy of the police report, which shows I was not at fault. He laid out the USB drive and copies on the table in front of the board. I ask that this board investigate this conduct and update our rules so that personal property cannot be handled this way. Some board members looked down at their papers. Others exchanged worried glances. Karen sat motionless, her cheeks pale. One board member, Ms. Liu, leaned forward. Mr. Johnson, thank you for bringing this to our attention. His behavior is unacceptable. She looked at Karen. Do you have a response? Karen swallowed and spoke softly. I regret my actions. I let my anger get the best of me. I am sorry to Mr. Johnson and to the community. Her voice wavered. Alex felt a small pang of pity, but stayed focused. Mr. Edwards tapped his gavel lightly. We will vote on whether to open a formal inquiry. All in favor? Hands raised around the table. The vote was unanimous except for Karen, who abstained. Motion carried, he said. We will invite an independent mediator to review the incident and recommend new guidelines for board conduct. We will also schedule a workshop on respectful communication. He wrote the decisions on a whiteboard for all to see. Alex exhaled slowly, his legs steady under him. He had done what he came to do.
Nice.
Neighbors clapped softly in support. As the meeting moved on to other items, Alex remained standing for a moment, his eyes meeting those of Mrs. Rivera and Mr. Patel. They nodded proudly. He sat down and felt a warm glow in his chest. He had turned a moment of anger and fear into real change. After the meeting, several neighbors surrounded him, offering words of thanks. You really made a difference, one said. We feel safer knowing our board will be held to higher standards. Alex smiled and shook hands. He caught sight of Karen speaking quietly with another board member. She glanced his way and gave a small, sincere nod. In that gesture, he saw genuine regret. He realized that holding people accountable did not require hatred. It could bring about understanding. As he walked home later, the binder under his arm, Alex thought about what had happened. Felt proud that he stood up, not only for himself, but for every neighbor who valued respect and kindness. The quiet street and the gentle rustle of leaves felt peaceful once more. He looked ahead and saw his front porch light welcoming him home. He stepped onto his porch, turned back once more toward the clubhouse at the end of the block, and whispered, "We did it." Then he closed the door behind him, ready for a new day. The weeks after the HOA meeting were busy for Alex. The board had started its formal inquiry into Karen Thompson's behavior. An independent mediator was brought in to review the evidence Alex had presented. The video footage, witness statements, and police report were all carefully examined. The board members took their responsibilities seriously. They wanted to make sure that every resident felt safe and respected in the community. Alex felt proud knowing his actions had led to this. One afternoon, Alex received a call from the HOA office. The new board chair, Mr. Edwards, invited him to a small gathering at the clubhouse. They wanted to officially apologize and return his damaged driver's license. Alex felt nervous, but accepted the invitation. When the day came, he arrived. To find a group of neighbors and board members waiting, the atmosphere was calm and friendly. Mr. Edwards stepped forward and held up a small box. "This is for you, Alex," he said kindly. Alex opened the box carefully. Inside was his driver's license, now dry but a little worn from its time in the drain. Alongside it was a formal letter of apology from the HOA. The letter promised changes to community rules to prevent such incidents from happening.
Again.
Alex looked around and saw smiles and nods of agreement. He felt a deep sense of relief and hope. In the following days, the HOA began making changes. They installed a locked container near the clubhouse for lost and found items, so no one would have to worry about their belongings being mistreated. The board also created a clear code of conduct that emphasized respect, fairness, and open communication. Training sessions were planned to help board members and residents understand the importance of kindness and patience. Alex was invited to speak at some of these sessions, sharing his story and encouraging others to stand up for what is right. Life in the neighborhood slowly returned to normal, but with a new feeling of community spirit. Neighbors greeted each other more warmly, and there was a sense that everyone was watching out for one another. Alex often saw Mrs. Rivera and Mr. Patel chatting with Karen. Over time, she seemed more thoughtful and careful in her words and actions. Alex did not hold a grudge. He believed people could learn and change. One evening, as the sun set in soft pink and orange hues, Alex sat on his porch. He thought back to the morning his ID was thrown away. That moment had been frightening and unfair, but it had also sparked a change. His courage to speak up had made the neighborhood better for everyone. He smiled softly, feeling grateful for the friends he had made and the respect now shared among neighbors. The community had grown stronger, and so had Alex. He understood that standing up against wrongs is not always easy, but it is always worth it. He hoped that his story would inspire others to be brave and kind in their own lives. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Alex closed his eyes and whispered a quiet thanks for the new beginning, one built on respect, fairness, and hope. For the future,